Hello, happy afternoon. I'm glad you have joined me today. I hope you've had a great day. We've had a pretty good day, and I am looking forward to some vacation next week. I'm taking some R&R time. I will have a video posted. It's going to be a surprise video for next week, so check it out. Hopefully it'll be a fun one. Today, I don't think it's going to be a long session, but last week I was talking with Dr. Kim Berry. We caught up with him, and I asked him a question about microplastics. And we've done a previous video a couple of months ago now that was on microplastics and being obesogenic or making us gain weight. And it cited some research there. I recommend you go back and watch that video. And I made a comment in there that Tupperware might be killing us. Well, it really might be killing us or might have played a role in too many of the health conditions that we are now suffering. So the reason I asked him that question is there was a study put out March 7th of this year, 2024, in the New England Journal of Medicine. And in the people I follow, it exploded and it sent a ripple effect and made us all kind of stop and think. And that's why I posed the question to Dr. Berry on how dangerous are these things? Should we be worried about them? What does he think they play? And he admits there's a lot of research to be done, and I admit that too. But I wanted to take a moment to discuss this study because I realize some of you guys that follow me may not follow some of the same people that I do that did a great job of covering this. So I do recommend you go back and look at Dr. Berry's videos on this, and also one Nick Norwitz. I would definitely check out his. His last name is spelled Nortiw, I believe. No, Tiz. I have to double check on that spelling. I'll cite it in the comments here. But both of them did very good videos. Nick's explanation is short and sweet of this study. It's going to reiterate a lot of the things that I say. He's a great person to follow just for scientific-based information that is common sense too. So the title of the study is Microplastics and Nanoplastics in Atheromas and Cardiovascular Events. So microplastics, basically byproducts from things off of foods that we consume, water that we consume, environmental exposures. But what they did is this is a prospective study, meaning they looked at individuals and they observed certain things in them. So these were individuals who had undergone a procedure called a carotid endarterectomy. So the carotid arteries are the arteries that run on both sides of your neck and give blood flow to the brain. And in these individuals, they were asymptomatic, but they had plaque buildup in their arteries that needed to be removed. And it was about 70% blockage for them to remove these atheromas or these plaques in the arteries. So they removed them from the individuals and then they biopsied them, basically. They divided them up and they looked at them. And they analyzed them for these microplastics and nanoplastics. They also did inflammatory biomarkers on these individuals to kind of get an idea of where the inflammation was in any of these. Their primary endpoint was to say, all right, let's look at these biopsied plaques. Is there microplastics in them? What's the rate of those microplastics? And then let's follow these individuals for about 33 months and see what the outcomes are as it relates to cardiovascular events. So did they have heart attack or stroke from any cause? And how many of them had microplastics in their arteries? So they had 257 individuals that had these endarterectomies where the plaque was removed. And what they found is that polyethylene was detected in the carotid artery plaques of 150 out of the 257 individuals. They also found that 31% of the patients had measurable amounts of polyvinyl chloride. Both of these are commonly known microplastics and nanoplastics. So of the 257, over 50% had these microplastic nanoplastics in their arteries. They also looked at these under like a high powered microscope, and they could visibly see the jaggedness of these plastics. So imagine what happens to blood vessels and things as they're moving through these plaques, the plaque area that's filling up the blood vessel, and it's nicking all of these things as they go by. So it can create a lot of inflammation, a lot of damage. They also found chlorine in some of these plaques. which indicates to me that more chemicals are getting caught. And also that if there's microplastics in there, it may be coming from a water source too, and how they're getting in there. But that's my conclusion that I took from that. So, what they found is that individuals who had microplastics in their plaques, so this was over 50% of those that were studied when they followed them for 33 months and looked at how many of them had heart attacks, strokes, and things from any cause, there was a hazard ratio of 4.53. What that translates to is that of these individuals, they were 300% more likely to have a cardiovascular event than those who had plaque in their arteries that did not contain microplastics. Okay, that's a pretty big deal. In my opinion, that's a really big deal. Did the microplastics cause the plaque? Maybe, maybe not. But of the people that had them, they were 300% more likely to have heart attack, stroke, cardiovascular condition. So this polyethylene and polyvinyl chloride, in their various forms, they are used in a wide range of applications, but mostly they're used in the production of foods, so processed foods. They're also used in cosmetics, the makeup we put on our face, the lotions, the shampoos, all of that things, and in water pipes. And this is actually a conversation I've had with my dad. My dad is an engineer and designed wastewater treatment plants. And when I started talking to him about microplastics, he's like, oh yeah, we've been aware of this for years. We've been getting EPA warnings and all kinds of warnings, and we've been figuring out ways to how to reduce them in our water supply and how to measure them and things. I was like, really? It's kind of neat how my dad's world and my world kind of collided there. So these things are found in our drinking water. Ding, ding, maybe the chloride and chlorine, and that's why they were in there. So they've also been found in our air. It's like, how do they get in our air? Well, it's mostly from things like carpeting and flooring and the dust and things that come off of that. And then we inhale it and it gets stuck. So, these things have been found. These products have been found in our blood samples of healthy individuals. They've been found in breast milk. They've found in urine samples, and they've been found in lung samples. And these are in healthy individuals. So when these things get in someone who's not healthy, what do? They maybe cause heart attacks and strokes. When they get in people who are healthy, are they going to cause those things down the road? Maybe. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. Now, this study does say they have some limitations, and some of those limitations are the fact that correlation doesn't mean causation. And we've said this multiple times, just because there's fat in our body doesn't mean that that necessarily means the cholesterol is high. The correlation does not always mean causation, and that very well may be here. All they've proven is that there is a correlation, that there is microplastics in these arteries and in these clogged arteries, and that those people were more likely to have cardiovascular events down the road. They admit that there could be confounding variables. It could be these individuals' diets, it could be certain environmental exposure, could be a number of other confounding variables. They also cannot rule out that there wasn't contamination by the laboratory. They tried to keep everything clear and keep microplastics and things away from the samples, but they said there could be some contamination. And they also admit that they didn't look at socioeconomic status. So is it something that certain populations and certain socioeconomic status people are exposed to more than others? There's all these variables that have to be sought out. But at the end of the day, what they do know is over 50% of the people they studied had microplastics. And in those that had microplastics, they were extremely more likely to have a cardiovascular event than the people who didn't have microplastics in their arteries. So what can we do? And these are things that we've talked about in our last video about the microplastics being obesogenic. The best thing you can do is try to prevent getting exposed to as many of these. And they're in our environment, so it's hard to prevent it altogether. But you can make sure you're cooking in things that don't have plastic. Store your foods in things that don't have plastics. If you're reheating your foods, do not heat them in plastic. Heat them in a glass dish or ceramic dish. Also, Drink out of metal things instead of plastic things. Plastic water bottles are a huge contaminant source. I even go so much as to use a metal straw because I'm like, well, this is something I'm sipping out of over and over again. And I'm just envisioning these things getting in me every time I take a sip of them. Dr. Barry mentioned using a reverse osmosis water filter. You can filter water more. The biggest thing you can do outside of changing the things that you put your food in and cook your food in, do not eat processed foods. These microplastics, nanoplastics are in all of our processed foods. We already know processed foods are more likely to cause obesity and increase your risk of cardiovascular disease. Yet here's another reason to not eat processed foods, because they can increase your risk of cardiovascular disease through plastics and not even through how bad the foods are you in and of themselves. So don't panic. But do take steps. Take steps to eat a more whole foods diet. If it was put on this planet naturally, if it is a meat, if it is an egg, is it vegetable, is it a fruit, it is hands down better for you than something that has come in a plastic container. Cook smart, drink smart, and just do everything you can to prevent. And then we'll sort out the rest as we go. But I don't think there's any danger whatsoever in making those changes. Take a look at the study yourself, check it out, and stay tuned next week for our other video that's going to be posting while I'm on vacation. Don't forget, Low Carb for Better Health is coming up. I am so excited about this event. And who knows, we might even talk about microplastics there too. But if you would like to join us, look at www.lc4bh.com. Click the Get Tickets Now and go over to the Eventbrite section. You can buy tickets for Friday night and Saturday night, or just Saturday Friday night, Saturday day, or just Saturday. Saturday's the main event where you're going to be hearing talks from each of the speakers and have time for question and answer. Friday's more social time, and there will be a question and answer time that's there. I can't wait to share it with you guys. I've had a fabulous time the last few years that we've done this, and looking forward to continue to grow it. So check it out at lc4bh.com. Also, if you want to avoid Eventbrite fees, online fees, and you're in the Dixon area, you can come into the clinic and we will take cash from you to get the tickets, and you'll avoid online fees. If you're in the McEwen Waverly area here in Tennessee, check out Happy Hippie Farms, the little low carb bakery and restaurant. They also can take your cash there and get you tickets. All right, until next time, guys, stay happy and healthy.